Hey, Brian from Garage Mahal. Today we have a GE dryer, and this is the model GFD65, but it will also cover these models. And we are going to be converting this over from natural gas to liquid propane. So it's going to have the little orifice, and there is a lot of steps to this. So I'll try to go as slow as I can. Tools that you'll need. So you're going to need a T25, so that's what that looks like. And then you're going to need this. It's a Phillips head, but it's a kind of like a boxy Phillips head, and you can get them in this Black & Decker kit. It has everything that you need for that. An extension, and then again that boxy Phillips head. A thin magnet, and I'll show you what you need this for as we go along. Flashlight. You only need one zip tie, but it's good to have two in case you lose one. A 1/4 inch extension with a 1/4 inch socket on it. 1/4 inch wrench. A mirror, just because that's going to help you look into the different spots where we're going to get into the gas thing. You don't need this, but it is very helpful. It is basically a long extended clipper, because there's one spot where you can't get the zip tie that they have on there off without it. You probably don't want to use a knife in that spot because you don't want to cut any wires. A small adjustable wrench, and then your orifice kit. This is your liquid propane, so basically that's where the gas is going to be going through that little nipple there, and then this is what provides the pressure. It's spring loaded, and I'll show you what we're changing out when we get there, but that is the conversion kit that you need. And on this you'll need a flathead screwdriver. I basically have just my handy dandy Leatherman that has all the little pieces on it. Okay, so, and I like using a little power drill, and again this is a 1/4 inch socket with the extension piece on it. And the first thing we want to do is get down here, and then this is going to be where you hook up your propane line, and we want to get this piece off. So that kind of like just holds that, so you take that bracket out completely. And then on the side there is this little piece, and I've already run through, and I basically had taken this completely apart, put it back together again so we could film it and help everybody out there with this. So I'm basically using a really flat head screwdriver, and you just kind of want to put it in here, and then you'll kind of like, you'll see that there's a little groove on the side, and then you pop this piece out, and then you have a 1/4 inch hex screw there, and we're going to be taking this out. Okay, we'll put that there. And then you're and then you're going to be taking this plastic cover piece off. Basically kind of slides out and off. And then you have 2 hex screws in here. And you want to get in there. Okay. And this is where that little magnet comes in handy, where you can go in and grab each little hex screw. Okay, this panel is a little tricky. What you are doing is you're basically kind of pulling it forward, and then you're pushing it to the right, and then it comes off. So that will be a little difficult when we're going back on. You have a screw here, and it goes into this, and it is plastic, so you're going to be very careful when you're maneuvering around that. And then you can go through the trouble of popping these off, but they will break on you. So what we're using kind of a little bit of a non-slip surface here. So we can put this panel up and kind of out of the way. And it's a little bit of a balancing act because these wires are a little on the taut side. But like I said, you can pop these, but they end up breaking. Now you have, and while we're up here, we have 4 1/4-inch hex screws on this panel as well. So we're gonna take them all off. Okay, now we're going to open the door, and we're actually going to take the door off, and there are 2 hex screws here as well. And this door we lift up, and then we pull out, and then that's how that sits in there, and gives you kind of an idea where that sits. I'm going to put this door out of the way. Okay, next we have this little side door piece, and if you're switching your doors around, you'd be basically taking this bracket, flipping it over here, and then you can put the door in there so you can make it a left hand open. It just happens to default to a right hand open. Okay, we're switching bits out, and this is the T25 bit we're going to be using now. And then we're going to basically take this out. Then this piece just comes completely out. Okay, here comes these funny Phillips. So again, it's going to be that little weird configuration there. Okay, now be careful because this is sheet metal, so make sure that you're not grabbing any sharp edges. But what I am doing is I'm basically going to be pulling up on this piece right here, kind of grip it like that, and then that comes out, and then you have a switch here, basically just kind of releasing that. And if you look when you're putting this back in, so you have these little notches all down here. You want to make sure that they rest on these hooks, and you got 2 more on this side. They are plastic, so be very careful when you're doing that. So you basically kind of have to have it raised up slightly and then push down when you take it out, but we'll go through that. Okay, so now we have this area basically open and exposed. This is going to be where you're going to be replacing the orifices on this piece. So you're going to have to get that out. And there are a couple connectors here. So you want to disconnect that one first. And then you have these 2 on top. And these are a little tricky to get off. There's like a little notch on it. But you're going to be disconnecting those. There's a 3 and a 2 and then a 1. And you won't be able to confuse them. So no worries on there. And then there's 3 bolts under here. So if you can see right there, you can have 1 here, 1 here, and then 1 on that side. Hopefully you can see the 3 of them It's pretty easy to see, I think, from this camera angle. And this is where basically you're putting a 1/4-inch socket on, and you're just basically taking each one of these screws out. There's one. There's two. And then there's a third one that's back here. So you got those 3 screws. Now, again, I had already taken this apart, but if I can get a good camera angle in there, you're gonna have this wire. It's basically zip tied up to this part of the gas line. So let me pull this out and I'll show you. But when you are pulling this out, you're basically gonna pull it out, kind of twist it, and then you got to kind of shimmy it down. Then you got to kind of like rotate it around this way, and then you can pull that out. So again, this is the piece, and when I put this back together again, I'll show you how they had the 2 wires basically kind of wrapped up and in there. But again, this is going to be your natural gas orifice, and then your natural gas, I forget what this part's called, but we have to replace that as well. So pretty easy. We're going to get this kit out. And then we're going to use a flathead screwdriver, or in my case, my handy dandy Leatherman. And we are basically putting it on top of that head, and we are just turning it counterclockwise. Just so we broke that free. And then we are taking that out. And then we are replacing it with this piece right here. And that's a little spring loaded. And if you look down in here, you got that little hole that is going to line up into. So go nice and easy down. And then we are going to put that down, basically just about hand tight, and then I need a thinner screwdriver. And then we're just going to tighten that down. And again, it doesn't have to be super tight, it's just got to be snug. So we got that nice and snug. Okay, in the kit is a sticker that you are basically going to put over this and down, and this is basically going to let people know that this has been switched over from natural gas to a liquid propane orifice. So we'll just put that down as best as we can. Smooth that out with the screwdriver so it doesn't interfere with our connections. Okay, and then next we have to take this orifice out, and that's what we're going to use our little wrench on, and basically just a little bit of pressure, and then that will release for you. So again, we're replacing that. And then we're going to put this one in from the kit. And just comparison, you can see the size of the hole difference. So we're going to put that down. Alright, and don't force it. It should go pretty natural. And then again, not super tight, just kind of like snug that down. So, and that's it. And then your conversion is done. So now we're going to put everything back together again. Now this is the tricky part. So this is what we're going to use our zip tie for. So I'm basically just kind of let that hang down like that. I'm going to put a little bit of a natural bend in it, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to be able to zip tie the wires back up. And then we're going to go in, and this one wire here, this one white wire, we're going to loop up underneath. So we're going to get that gas line up underneath there, and we're going to get my head in the way. I apologize. And then we are going to kind of tilt this back. Sideways like this. We're going to kind of get that up, over and in. Okay, so the hardest part is getting it up on this lip. Like I said, you got to kind of like rotate it back and forth, and then you have to get the gas line straight through the back. Couple twists, you got to lift up on the line a little bit, and then you're making sure it lines up. Okay, so a little wiggling, and then it'll sit, and see how this little circle piece is hanging off the shelf right there. That's how you know you have it in good position, and then you can start putting these screws back in the bottom. See how this hangs over that ledge? That's what you're looking for. Like I said, you got to kind of twist and then get that gas line in the back. And then we are putting these screws back into place. Almost snug. We'll line up these other two screws, 3 in total. And again, be careful because this is sheet metal under here, so you want to be very gentle. And so we're just going to get a couple threads started, and then we'll get this one in the back. Okay, and then these wires, again, we'll set this one in the back, and then just push it, and you'll feel it kind of snap in place. And then this one here, 3 wires, push, you feel it snap into place. And then you have this connector back here. Again, a little tricky. And then you snap that into place as well. And then we'll tighten up these bolts, these screws rather. And just tighten till they bottom out. Okay, so this is the zip tie that I have. You can kind of see behind the wires. And then these are the 2 sets of wires that you want to get zip tied in place. So I'm going to do this and I'll show you after because it's going to be a little tricky holding the camera to it. Okay, so you can kind of see I got the zip tie here, and we're just going to like take that so that wire kind of stays out of the way. And you don't have to make it super tight. And then just make sure this wire's sitting out of the way. So I'm going to put another zip tie over here to kind of hold this back this way a little bit. Okay, so if you can kind of see that blue wire there, I have a zip tie on that bracket, and then there's some black tape for like where that's on that wire exactly, so you can kind of see that. And then the white wire here, we looped it underneath. So that's how that should all look reconnected. Alright, so make sure you connect the door switch wire. Make sure it's nice and snug. Yeah, push that kind of up and out of the way. And you want to get these little hooks lined up, top and bottom, that side, that side, and then just kind of like give it a little push down. Make sure that they're connected. Then we'll put our hex screws in on top here. Okay, while I have this still connected, we'll get the front door. And again, you'll just want to kind of line these holes up. Slide it down into place, and then you're going to have these two hex. Try to support the door pretty good. It shouldn't go anywhere, but at least until you got that one hex in. Then we'll put this other one down here at the bottom. A couple threads going. Support the door until the hex goes in. Okay. Okay, so that's in. Alright, then this goes in with the T25, so we'll switch bits. Get a couple threads going here. Make sure that all sits properly. Okay, so that's nice and good. So make sure this door is lined up properly and closes. So perfect. Okay, we switch bits again, and we're going to put these 4 screws back in, and that is that weird Phillips head. good. That looks good. I'm going to switch out to our quarter inch hex bit. And then this one, this is where it's tricky. Again, now you got that little piece here. We've got to line up with that little screw right there. There to there. And then you have these little tabs that kind of have to go in straight. So you kind of put it at a little bit of an angle. Kind of like you'll feel kind of slip in, and then these all notches go right back into place. And a nice little pop at the bottom. Then we're good. And then here we take our magnet. And then I just do that to help line that hole up. Make sure that they're in there. Okay. Just put these in. See how that pulls that nice and flush. Alright, then we put our cover back on. Kind of like line that up and then push that in. Put that screw in. Okay. I'll put that little plug back in. All good there. Now our gas line support. And then it's gonna go right over like this. See how it pulled that line out? So you got to make sure they have everything lined up here properly, so that goes in through this as well as the bracket on the inside for the gas line support. And that's it. Anyway, that's how you do your natural gas to liquid propane conversion on your GE, and probably most dryers out there. They're all pretty much the same on the inside. Anyway, Brian from Garage Hall, thanks for watching, and be safe out there.